Hi, friends. Welcome to Take Courage. My name is Diana Neal. As most of you know, Winston, we are going to wait a bit before we jump in. As you get on, go ahead and let me know that you're on tonight. Also, if you want your name to be seen and for me to be able to interact with you or Jenna to interact with you, you have to give StreamYard permission to actually show your name. And so that's right at the top with a link. And you'll be able to give StreamYard permission. And, a lot of you have been on with Take Courage and the interviews that I've done. And, I'm not always like share, but right now, as you get on, I'm really encouraging you to share. Like I feel the anointing already of the Holy Spirit right now because Jenna carries amazing breakthrough and just a radical testimony of God's love and of God's favor and God's goodness. And I know that there's not only breakthrough on tonight in what she has to say, but she has some amazing opportunities to connect with her and get further freedom and breakthrough. And so I'm just so excited. And so as you get on, please go ahead and let us know that you're on. I'm starting to see that we have some viewers. And go ahead and just share this because tonight is going to be a night of exposing shame. It's going to be a night of knowing that breakthrough is available and that we can completely shift when it comes to God from pain into promise and just God's goodness flowing over us. So now I feel like I'm preaching, but I am excited about tonight. So Jenna, thank you so much for being on.
I'm so excited.
I'm so honored. And I've been following you for a bit, like I told you, and just loving your podcast. I love just seeing what God's doing in your life, just online, right? We've never even met in person, but I was thinking about it, and before I even introduce you, I'm like, I put on there like, why did I have Jenna on? Like, I'm always thinking of this. And not only did God highlight you to me, and I've been, listening to you and looking at different things that are going on in your life, but the one thing that just kept coming to me was God shows off in Jenna's life. And that to me was beautiful. Like,
for sure.
God shows off in your life. I see it through your post and just such radical transformation. And I'm like, I want people to know that it's possible. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah. So
there's so many things that God does in my life. I couldn't make that up if I wanted to. Like, it's so supernatural. And I just want every breath that I breathe to give him glory because it's all him. Like I could never, I'm not that clever.
Exactly. Yeah. And even when you're posting, like you're showing like God's glory and just like his crazy goodness and love and the upgrades and the, it's just fun. Like I take joy just seeing what's new in Jenna's life.
He's definitely doing something crazy all the time.
Yeah, that's incredible. So everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm on tonight with Jenna Winston. Most of you probably know her. But for those that don't, Jenna is a writer, a speaker, a deliverance pastor. She does one-on-one coaching. We're going to get into some things that Jenna's offering. But she has a radical testimony of being healed from mental illness, addiction, trauma, sexual abuse, and her heart is to see people free and to experience the love of God and for shame to be broken off of people. And so, as I said in the very beginning, share this. I don't encourage you necessarily maybe to tag people in it, but definitely share. And, let's get this out there, because there's a lot of breakthrough, like I said, an opportunity tonight to connect with Jenna. I also just want to throw out a couple things, and I will be putting this in the comments, and it's in the Take Courage page as well. But Jenna's website is Heartscaping, and I'll put that in the comments in a bit.com. Also, later on, I'll be putting in the comments her link for the school that she's doing to get healing from sexual abuse. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. And also, Jenna, I'll get it later, but your podcast link, that's through the eyes of a seer prophet. Right. With Jenna Winston?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Awesome. Yeah. So I'll put all those links in, but we're going to get started. Do you want to add anything before I start here?
Just that it's actually heartscaping.co instead of .com.
Okay.
And just that. But yeah, and for those that don't know me, you can follow me on Instagram under Jenna Winston 20, and all of my links to everything is in my link tree.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that too.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So thanks again for being on. And I just love for you to go ahead and start, Jenna. Anywhere that you want to, you can go as deep as you want. And just for people to get to know you, share your testimony a bit, your background, and what you're doing now. Yeah.
Yes, I definitely did not grow up pretty princess church girl for sure. We did go to church. We knew church, did not know God. But I dealt with trauma and abuse, very violent from a very, very young age, as far back as I can remember. And the same people that were teaching me about God and the word was the same people taking everything, So, I think I was always a fighter. I've always been a little bit on the alpha side, that you're not going to break me. And I actually found, I want to say, pride in just how much pain I could endure, and never knew in a million years that wasn't God's heart for me, And then I did the whole typical, I made the vow that I wasn't going to be a typical stereotype of an abuse victim, which clearly I stepped right into that. But I decided I was just running from everything. And so I met my ex-husband at 18, got married at 19, had Anthony at 20, had Dominic at 21. And I will say I made a pretty good run at trying to be a good person for a long time. And then about the time that I turned 28, I discovered, or I was dealing with, one of my abusers moved to town, and and also my husband had started some infidelities, and I was just like this walking bucket of nerves. I became that like psycho chick that's like hitting redial on the phone and trying to catch him and just going insane and dealing with constant anxiety. And I had I feel like this is important because I really learned when the first partnership was made. And this is what I do is, when do we first partner, with things? And I'll never forget it. I had a surgery and I was taking pain medication, and I happened to have this day. Now, did I know it at the time? No, this is through inner healing that I put it together. But I had taken my pain medicine, and then I went to the bank and I came home and I was like, oh, I got to take my medicine, and didn't realize I ended up accidentally taking 2 doses really close together. And I was so naive, really naive, that I even called poison control thinking, oh my gosh, I did something bad or whatever. Right. And they're like, no, you're probably just going to sleep really good. Well, about 20 minutes later, I discovered that euphoria for the first time. Wow. And all of a sudden I became really super gentle and loving. And instead of snapping at my kids, I was like, no, that's not okay behavior. And I remember consciously thinking or putting it together that it was the medication, and immediately partnered with the lie that this medication makes me a better person. I'm a better person. And I had endless amounts available to me due to an aunt that never took it and had bottles and bottles and bottles. And so it kept me going for a while. Long story short, I was a functioning addict for a long time where, you know, even though I was constantly taking pills, I held a job, was a mom, did, you know, still took my kids back and forth to football and whatnot. And, but then I became not so functioning. And it became my God, and nothing else mattered, and lost homes, lost cars, lost everything. And I don't even know how my ex-husband and I stayed married. He just kept, you know, just watched me drown and kept falling. You know, we just both were just running into the ground. But needless to say, it all came, like the last 3 years, I was literally on the streets on methadone. And, you know, when you see those people in, you know, downtown that are, you know, dirty and yelling at cars going by and hitting the air in themselves, I was one of those people. Like, I was so far gone. By that time, I had been in the psych ward 19 times. That's all on my medical records. I had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, PTSD, bipolar. I was on 11 different medications. I was on everything and had been for over, you know, well over a decade. And then I just was done. I didn't know that life could be better. I didn't even know. I never knew anything but just pain. And at this point, you know, I wasn't with my husband. My kids hated me. I'd burnt every bridge of everyone I knew. And I decided to take my life. And they ended up pumping 87 OxyContin out of my stomach. And in the middle of the night, this nurse, who I'm still friends with, I love her dearly, this nurse walks in my room and she closes the door behind her and she kind of looks like this. And she's like, I'm not supposed to do this, but God's been telling me for 2 hours to tell you that he loves you. And if you look up, he's going to pull you out of this. And I was so full of hate and anger that I said, F God. And even though that's what came out of my mouth, something supernatural broke inside. And I just started weeping, and 38 years of pain that had been, stuffed inside just started coming out. And I just was weeping and just uncontrollably. And sure enough, they, I ended up back in the psych ward. They just upped my medication like they always did, whatever. And when I got out, I'll save some of the extra details because it's a long story, but through the supernatural chain of events, I ended up in faith-based recovery. And when I was very first in recovery, of course, you don't know that you're believing lies until you identify them as lies because you believe them. And one of the biggest lies was I think I saw Jesus as someone who was just going to gently come along and tell me all the things that I needed to work on to be good enough to go to heaven. Right. And I ended up, not long after I got there, I ended up having this encounter. Well, no. I ended up having what I now know to be natural deliverance. Okay. So much Jesus was going in. And all of a sudden, to me, it felt like I got connected to all of this rage. And I started screaming and yelling and cussing and throwing stuff. And now I know it was actually the demons leaving. And after that happened, I've never experienced anything like it. I was spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically exhausted, like nothing left in me. And I passed out on my bed. And that is when Jesus became real for me, because Jesus walked in there and laid in that bed with me and started to play with my hair. And instead of telling me all the things I needed to fix, he said, I am so sorry for all the things that happened to you that made you not want to feel. And if you trust me, I'm going to make every day of the rest of your life better than any day you've ever lived. And that's exactly what he's done. And what I didn't realize is that, as after this encounter and Jesus seriously, supernaturally just brought everything into realignment, I didn't know what a seer was. I didn't know any of that existed. All I know is that within a couple of weeks, I would sit there, here I am in recovery, 30 chicks coming out of drugs and prostitution. and I could see demons. Like I see demons with the naked eye, like they're as real to me as you are. And I could hear what they were saying, and I knew their assignments. And so I was like, I was never afraid. So I thought everybody did this. I thought this was normal, and I was trying to figure it out. And so then I ended up telling someone, and they prayed with me, and they said that they could tell I didn't even know the word discernment. I had no understanding for this stuff. But because the way my gifts exploded, now instead of getting a program and learning how to be clean off of drugs, I was being asked to pray all the time. Like I touch people, demons leave. I touch people, they get healed. And then it turned into a scary thing. Like I would get stalked in bathrooms. I remember one time somebody standing outside the bathroom. Do you see the spirit of affliction on me? Like it went crazy. And then my identity became this crazy gift. I became the crazy girl that saw stuff, and it's a scary thing when people approach you because they believe that you're the only person that holds the key to their freedom, Yes. So there was a lot of figuring that out. I graduated recovery. And then the Lord called me to Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry. And I had never heard of it. I didn't know who any of these people were, but I heard the term supernatural ministry, and I was like, oh, a whole bunch of me's. I'm going to learn about me, right? No, I found out I was a freak of nature, even at Bethel. I didn't even know. So, that first year, though, like whenever I go back and speak at Bethel, one of my favorite things to say is I went to ministry school to learn how to not minister. And that is truth, because now my identity had become my giftings and what I could do in the spirit, but I did not know I was a daughter. Yeah. I just knew how to work for Jesus and be a robot in ministry. And so having an amazing revival group pastor that could see that and had me lay that down and let the Lord strip me to restore to me this identity that he had for me of who I was always meant to be. Well, then my second year revival pastor, who's still one of my best friends to this day, then bringing it all together. And she's like, it doesn't have to be one or the other. It's okay that you're a grandma who is a sneakerhead, who loves to rap, who slays demons, who talks to angels and laughs really loud. And it's okay to be all those things at the same time. So it was like God hit all these different areas, because I did have so much arrested development, Yeah. And, but then, I did first year at Bethel, second year, and then usually you do an internship after that. But I ended up going on staff and became, well, I think I'm their only prophetic deliverance pastor. I'm still ordained under them. And Donna DeSilver, she's like, we haven't hired anybody in 8 years, but we're going to hire you because God says he's going to launch your ministry from here. Well, then I was there for a couple of years, and then God moved me to Los Angeles, and I now I live in Beverly Hills, because who says that? And counsel celebrities, and like I guarantee you that when I was sitting on the edge of that bed in recovery, I was so excited I got to keep my food stamps and could have regular top ramen. I wasn't thinking I'm gonna go change the world, But I do remember that first day. I sat that very first day in recovery because I had smuggled in all of my psych meds. I was afraid to not have them. And I said to the Lord then, okay, God, I am done picking and choosing what parts of me you can have. It's all or nothing. And if I'm going to trust you, it's going to be even in this. And so I haven't been on anything for a decade. This August 25th will be 10 years since my suicide attempt. Wow. And so... yeah, so there's just the quick
down, Jenna. Did you just say I'm not taking? Because I say people wean off of things and whatnot. Where you were just like, no,
yes,
I'm
it ended up
God in this.
Right. First of all, those of you that are listening, do not just stop taking your medication. Do not do that. This was my moment, and it's different when you know that God is behind you, asking you to do this. But I just stopped, and I had been on. Like a normal dose of one of these medications was 600 milligrams, and I was on 2000. Like I was on absurd amounts, and I just stopped. And when I took all the pill bottles, I dumped them out. I took them next door to the leadership, And they're like, you cannot just stop this. And I was like, nope, I'm done. They're like, no, we need to get you to the hospital. I'm like, nope, I'm done. They said, okay, well, we're going to watch you like a hawk. And you know what? I never had one withdrawal, not one.
Wow.
And I haven't been on anything. And so everything that I had been diagnosed with, all it was I was born, God created me with crazy spiritual gifts.
Yeah.
And because the enemy, through all the traumas and rapes as a child, I partnered with fear, and I was tormented through my own giftings.
Yeah.
And so once the Lord cleaned that up and got rid of that, then the seer prophet that God created me to be able to bring freedom. And then as he healed my heart, we all know your authority increases when you get a breakthrough in something. Well, I've been saved, like God's healed my heart from addiction, from rapes, molestation, cheating husband, all the things I did, lying and stealing, and that guilt and shame. Like, there isn't anything that he hasn't saved me from. And so it's not just that I was created to, no, I've been saved from it myself, you know, and mental illness. And so wanting to turn around and be able to release that over other people, knowing that they can automatically step into that breakthrough. And so it's my passion.
Wow, that is so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing, Jenna. And even now, I just want to take a minute to say, go ahead and share this. Right now, if you're in the Take Courage private group, you can't share it from there, but you can go on my page or Jenna's page or the Take Courage public page and go ahead and share. Just because we're gonna keep getting into some of these things, and there's going to be amazing breakthrough on this tonight. So, Jenna, you have a lot of exciting things going on, and when I say exciting, like just some powerful opportunities for people to get free. And I know when I first posted you in the Take Courage private group, I had people reach out and say, you know, ask like, what is the school that she's doing for the healing from sexual trauma? And so I want to give you some space here to tell us about what you're doing and really what should people expect. And also, Jenna, just I know it can be scary. Like I had some people even reach out and say to me, and when I've done coaching, just I don't know if I want to touch that. Like you're around opening that box.
Right.
So I'm wondering if you can just speak to that and go ahead and share.
Yeah. A couple months ago, the Lord really put it on my heart, you know, because I do other stuff. I do classes all the time, you know, like prophetic coaching and helping people identify their spiritual gifts, all kinds of stuff. But the Lord started talking to me about, you know, I've always shared my testimony, and there has been such a purity restored to my mind where such sick, twisted distortions had been. And, you know, and I've talked about all the freedom, but I had never broken down how God did that. Right. And it wasn't just an overnight fix. Like these are different things that God took me through. And so I started to realize that 95% of the people that I counsel all go back to sexual abuse, every one of them. And even if it's not that they have been raped or molested, it's also, or they came across dad's dirty magazines, or they came across somebody was watching porn or somebody showed them porn. Well, what happens is when you're a child, a curiosity naturally gets started, but you have a physical response. You're also taught it's bad and it's dirty. But nobody hates an orgasm. And so when your body responds in a positive way to something that feels sick and twisted in the spirit and gross, and you're taught, you automatically are so confused on why does something feel so good that makes me feel so bad? And nobody's explaining this. Nobody is sitting children down to unwind that. And most of the time, because of the shame, they're not talking about what they're experiencing, right? So they start getting addicted to masturbation. They start getting addicted to all of these things. But the whole time, they're beating themselves up, and the enemy is beating them up. Well, then, you know, everybody knows that after a while it takes more and more. Well, you know what? Can you imagine with all the child molesters that we have in the world? What if men actually started? Nobody grows up and says, I want to be attracted to a child. Nobody wants to be that way. Nobody dreams of growing up to be sick and twisted like that.
Right.
So what happened in their childhood that caused this distortion? And what if they started to actually have the nerve to reach out and say, this is a problem for me and I need healing, right?
Yes.
Or what about the people that it's a scientific thing for our bodies to desire sexual. God created an orgasm. God created sex. And God made it so that a husband and wife, it's almost like this reward thing where they can have a spiritual, mental, physical, amazing connection with each other. Well, what does the enemy do? The enemy has completely distorted that and absolutely ruined it, right? And so I even counsel couples that have done it the right way, but they were no, out of abstinence and fear, that now that they're married, they don't even know how to have sex with each other, and they believe the lie, it's not okay, and it's like, dude, when I get remarried, it is going to be on, let me tell you, like, it is so okay to love that. But the thing is that when there are distortions, you can get free. God wants to set you free, but nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to admit it. Everybody has shame and are embarrassed to reach out and get help. So I know that when Molly and I were setting up this class, Molly said to me, do we want it where you could see faces? Because you can either do the blocks where you can see everyone or hidden. And I said, yeah, because I feel like people need to punch through their shame. They need to not be afraid. What happened to you is not your fault. What you are desiring is not your fault. And now what can be your fault is keeping it hidden. Right? The fact is to come out and say, this is a struggle for me. This is a problem that I have, and I don't want this to eat me up anymore. And being able to get that freedom.
Yeah, that's incredible. So this is for people that are struggling with addiction, like pornography addiction or sex addiction.
Yeah, sex addiction, or even attractions to things that aren't.
And also for people that, like you said, 95% of the people you coach anyways had some type of root of something happening in childhood. So just for anyone that knows that, there's something not right in this area or something I haven't even faced, but I know that I need to. And so what should someone expect when they come in?
Well, first of all, I think it's really, really important for people we all seem to get in this place where we carry responsibility and the enemy beats us up and we convince ourselves it's us beating ourselves up for things that shouldn't even be there. Like, for instance, I'm going to go for the gusto and this is going to really, I don't know about offend, but I'm going to talk about something nobody wants to talk about. I counsel people where bestiality has actually come up, where people are attracted to animals. Okay. One, to admit that, I have so much honor for the people that came forth that have said that to me because they want free. But do you know what has to happen to a child to admit as they grow up that this is a thing? Like, how do you even discover, right? So what do we as the world do? We want to stay away from them. We want to avoid them. They're sick, they're twisted, they're bad, they're gross, but nobody wants that, right? So it's like being able to go back and say, like in my counseling sessions all the time, I take people, okay, when was the very first time that you remember that arousal or that confusion? And I've had something as simple as somebody was walking through the living room and mom and dad were watching HBO and it had something suggestive. But in that moment, you can't take away that something just got awakened, right? Something just got awakened. It made your tummy tickle. It made things happen in your body you don't understand, right? And then, but you go with it. That curiosity feeds you, right? And then it just keeps going. And then you become a teenager and then you start playing with your friends and then you start sleeping with people in high school. And then it's just not enough. But now you're built. But then what happens is a lot of people then disqualify themselves from relationships because they feel like they need to get this all cleaned up before they can be in a healthy relationship. So then they avoid relationships. Well, now the heart is still dying for connection. And so now their deepest romance is the phone screen on pornography.
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
they're going to go for instant gratification, because at the end of the day, it's an area of your heart that is desiring connection. And a lot of people get shocked when I tell them, so many of the men and women that because it's women too, that I walk out of pornography. The fact is that I always tell them, invite Jesus into it.
Yeah.
Invite Jesus into it.
Yeah.
Right. Not because they always think the same thing. It's that, well, if you invite Jesus into it, then you're going to be too embarrassed to do it.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Invite Jesus into it, because if you can receive his love that is definitely yours in your most shameful moment, then it empowers you out of it. Right.
Yes.
So then some people might go a week or two and not, right. And so they're feeling like and then one night, something happens, or their heart hurts, or they're really lonely. If you fall for it and do it again, don't immediately, okay, I lost it, I guess it didn't work, I'm back at square one. No, celebrate that you went 2 weeks.
Yes.
Celebrate that you went 2 weeks. And for some reason, people have this distorted idea that when you sin or you mess up, that you have to, endure a certain amount of self-condemnation before you can be free, right? No, stop trying to convince Jesus how sorry you are. It's as simple as saying, okay, God, forgive me, I messed up. Will you help me so that I won't want to do it again tomorrow? And being able to receive that being able to receive that forgiveness in the moment, and not having to prove how sorry you are. And so in this class, I'm going to hit all the different ones and literally breaking down, because the whole point is, where did this first partner in the beginning of your life, and where has it been woven into your thoughts and into your behavior? Because when we can get to the root, we rip it out, we loose the perfect love of heaven and God's purity into that, and all of those behaviors start to fall off on their own.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
I know for me, Jenna, I do group coaching now. Like I do individual coaching, but what I love about what you're doing is that this is a group, and they are going to be on seeing each other. And what I've seen personally through the group coaching are, people, and I've been in it before too. I learned about it when I was doing my master's in counseling. I had to go through it myself. And I had done a lot of inner healing for myself, and, went through deliverance and all these things.
Right.
But I had never encountered healing in a group like this. And so that's part of my heart of why I started doing this. But I share this right now because the amount of healing that I received in that group, and that I see people receive in the group coaching I do, it's powerful, because we can get healing one-on-one with God, but when we're in the presence of other people, and we're sharing in a vulnerable and transparent way, and we're just laying it out there, number one, we don't feel alone.
Right.
Number two, there is power in healing when you lay it out there and other people are loving and accepting you in that moment. It's like, we get Jesus' love and acceptance, but actually be around others and be like, I'm not alone. And, you're going to love me. You're going to accept me in this mess. It's a whole other level that you get to experience as well.
Yeah. The biggest lie that I want to punch in the face is that people don't even realize that they have this subconscious belief that if I can get this and this and this and this fixed, then I can be close to God. God's going, no, get close to me, and this and this and this and this will work itself out on its own. Right. And the other thing is there is power in the group, because the number one thing that the enemy is really, really good at is convincing people they're the only ones, or that they're alone. And it's so not true. I'm not kidding you guys. I literally counsel every walk of life, everything from government officials, celebrities, to people off of Skid Row, every single walk of life. And 95% of all aspects of life have an issue, or have had something happen, have been molested or been exposed. And I want to bring freedom to that.
Yes, that's absolutely incredible. So for someone that's watching or someone that might watch later, and as we're sharing, like there have been a couple people, like I told you, that said, I'm a
Yeah.
bit afraid. Can you speak to that fear for a minute, on someone that's like, I don't know that I want to dive into this.
Right. I'll tell you right now, my answer is going to seem very harsh. Any choice made out of fear, Satan owns.
Wow.
Any choice made out of fear. And anything that you keep back out of fear, Satan already has ownership of it already.
Yep.
And the fear that you're feeling is what the enemy wants you to feel, because as long as you fear having to talk about it or deal with it, then you're not going to get free. And of course, that's like making out with Satan.
Yeah.
It's literally, I use this example often, and I think it's really important. I was a pill addict. I didn't do street drugs. I still have never done street drugs, but I was a pill addict, right? Well, a crackhead is never going to go to a doctor and be prescribed crack, right? But the chances of going the rest of your life and not being prescribed a narcotic are slim to none. I wish I could say none, but
Right.
so I'd been in recovery for a year, then 9 months, and then I went to Bethel, and I'm about 3/4 of the way through my first year of school, and I got hurt really, really bad. Tore my rotator cuff, separated all the tissue right here, and of course they prescribed me Vicodin, and I wouldn't take it. I refused to take it, and I was laying there begging God to heal me so I didn't have to take it.
Yeah.
And I got frustrated with my housemate Holly, because she's like, the amount of physical pain that you're willing to endure to not take a pain pill is so unhealthy. Like, you don't understand. As soon as I take one, then I'm gonna want more, and da, 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 da.
Yes.
And I was like, you're Miss pretty perfect girl, never done anything wrong in your life. You don't understand. And so I'm laying there begging, like literally my prayer was, God, please just heal me so I don't have to take this medicine. God, heal me.
Yeah.
And then God so gently says to me, Satan owns your sobriety.
Wow.
What?
Wow.
Because you're not clean because you trust me. You're clean out of sheer fear of what will happen if you're not.
Wow.
And I was like,
Powerful.
God, are you asking me to take this Vicodin?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm asking you to invite me into this.
Yeah.
He's like, the pills themselves weren't the sin.
Yeah.
What you were doing and numbing your whole life. He goes, are you trying to heal your heart right now? No. He's like, then invite me into it. I was scared to death. I said, God, I'm going to fail you. I'm going to take one, and then I'm going to want more. And once my mind's altered, I'm going to this and that, whatever, and I'm going to fail. He goes, no, I want to own this area of your life. I want you to invite me in. And so I did. And it was the first time that I ever took pain medicine as prescribed and for my pain.
Yeah.
And then from that moment on, Jesus has been the one that has helped own my sobriety. And I learned so much from that moment, because I realized that there's so many decisions that we make out of fear, or we will process the worst case scenario and always pick the one of least resistance, right? Well, none of that is trusting God.
Right.
So in this case, if you have fear that is keeping you from anything, then Satan is winning.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want you free, and you're helping him.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things where there's probably so many things that could be unlocked and free in your life by just choosing to buckle down and walk through this.
Yep.
And you have no idea what it's like to be shame-free, guilt-free, and being able to every bit of freedom that you get, you're taking back what was stolen from you. And so that's my answer. If you fear this, do not let Satan win, because any choice made out of fear, Satan owns.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jenna. Now, you talked about like that, obviously the pills weren't the sin issue,
right?
It was getting down to the root of what was really going on.
Yeah.
With what you do, coaching, one-on-one, but also in this, you're getting down to the root. And so can you talk about heartscaping a little bit? Like, why heartscaping? What does it mean? And what do you do with your clients?
Yeah. The way that my name, the name Heartscaping came around was actually pretty funny. It wasn't like I sat and trying to come up with this, business name. It literally, somebody was talking about, I was talking about, I'm such a root girl. I'm always like, I want to get to the root, because if I get
Yeah.
to the root, then nothing else matters,
Yeah, that's how
And I said, it's kind of like landscaping, but for the heart, because I get to the roots. And I was like, it's like heartscaping. And then it just came out in this funny way, and it just stuck. And that's what it is I just get to the roots, because the way my gifting works,
yeah.
and this is where the prophetic deliverance pastor in me comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Because of my spiritual gifts, my ability to look at someone and be like, okay, this is what demons are attacking them. This is the lie that they're believing. This is what they're partnered with. This is what they're feeding, what they're not feeding. And this is the behavior that they have that comes from the partnership that they made. Right. And so what happens is, even though I can see all the spiritual around people, 90% of what comes out of my mouth in a session has nothing to do with what I see with my eyes, because I get, like the way Sean has words of knowledge. Yeah. I have the same thing, but mine goes back to the Lord shows me pictures on, I'm that girl that was like, when you were 7 years old, you went to school and you were told this and this and this. Like the Lord shows me prophetically where things happened in your childhood where you were rejected or abandoned or abused. And when you partnered with, I'm not good enough, I'm bad, or I'm dirty, or, and these partnerships. And so by going back and breaking off those lies and renouncing it and breaking off the assignment that the enemy has come at you since childhood, it opens up for God to come in and replace every area of your life. And so that's why Heartscaping. And I know I still, I get told all the time, I've still never met anybody else that does what I do. I would love to. Sometimes I feel like I'm out there, but I do know that I'm exactly who God created me to be. And I'll never forget, one day God said to me, when I first started preaching, when I first started speaking at churches, it was always my testimony, right? Because I just felt like I had been saved from so much. And then one day the Lord says, Jenna, you're not powerful because of what you've come out of. Yeah. I'm like, huh? He's like, you're powerful because I created you to be powerful. I always created you to bring change. I always created you to bring freedom. That's everything that came against you, because the enemy feared what you were going to step into. Yeah. And that changed that perspective for me. So how many of you guys watching have not stepped into what you've been created for because of these things, because of the guilt and the shame and the traumas and all the things that we hold on to that keep us, buckled in a safety belt, And it's like, how many of you have massive calls on your life, but you've disqualified yourself because of little hidden sins or whatever. And it's like, those are the things that you want to punch in the face. Yeah.
That's incredible. So Jenna, you talked about, and I actually just listened to this on your podcast about identity. And so I love, the topic of identity. And, there's just like, what was so interesting about your story to me was you come right out of addiction into this massive gift that you weren't familiar with. And now all of a sudden that becomes your identity. And like you said, you had to go to school to learn.
I was called a demon slayer.
Right. Which is, it's incredible. But what can you talk to the audience about identity? Like what would you say to someone that says, I want to fully know my identity in Christ. I want to know authority. I want to know power, not outside of their gifting, outside of what they do for work, or just someone that's saying, I have no idea. I'm dealing with so much shame and fear. How do I receive it?
Right. Yeah, no, I love this. When you have been a trifling, lying, conniving, manipulative drug addict, and God sets you free, and now, I mean, imagine being me, okay? You've been this horrible, horrible person, and now you touch people, and God touches them, and people are getting healed through you.
Yeah.
then all of a sudden you think you have a worth and a value, right? Because God's using me, I'm worth something. But
Yeah.
the truth is God can flow through an ass. It's in the Bible, right? God
Yep.
can flow through anything that he wants to. And I guarantee you, I have seen God flow through people that have some serious character issues, right?
Yeah.
And I had seen that meme one day that said, your giftings can open up doors that your character can slam shut, right?
Absolutely.
And I didn't want to be that.
Yeah.
Because God flowing through you has nothing to do with how great you're doing with God, period.
Yep. Yep.
But for me, God doesn't hate me because he flows through me, right? I have a worth and a value. I'm not a worthless piece of crap anymore. That's how I felt internally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was exhausted because I didn't have any boundaries. I didn't know how to tell people no. I had people all over the world want me to pray for them, and people that would drive for hours to want me to pray for them. And so I think I'm doing good, right? All I'd ever learned was sacrifice, lay yourself down for Christ, kill yourself, and, your needs don't matter, push aside your needs. And so I didn't sleep and I didn't eat, and I just lived in helping everyone.
Yeah.
So when I get to Bethel, and my first year revival pastor, she's like, I think you might need to lay down your sword. Mm-hmm. And when she said that to me, I remember my first thought was, without my sword, I'm the chick just 9 months out of rehab. Without my sword, I'm the chick that had my kids living in a storage unit. Without my sword, I'm nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm very self-aware of my thoughts. And I realized that that's probably not God's heart for me, that even though I was doing these amazing things in the spirit and people were getting free, I had no identity outside of that.
Yeah.
So what happened was I laid down my gifts, and I didn't know that I didn't know. I didn't know how to connect with my heart. I didn't know how to have a conversation with somebody that wasn't ministry. I didn't know how to sit down and talk with a girlfriend about some hot guy with abs. Like, I didn't know how to joke around. I didn't know anything other than how to sit down and read you your mail and tell you what demons are attacking you and how to get you free, right? And I had loved it, right? So when I laid all of that down, I didn't know that the Jenna underneath still could not receive the love from God, did not feel worth the love from God, didn't believe she was worth loving, that without me doing something for God, that I didn't deserve to be loved. Unless I was praying for people and people were getting free, that I didn't deserve to be loved. So I didn't know how to accept his love without me doing stuff for it. So the Lord took me down this journey of learning how to connect to him without working for it. And I'd never heard of such a thing in my life. But my revival group pastor, she says, I give this challenge to people all the time.
Yeah.
My revival group pastor says, I want you to go home. I don't want you to pray. I don't want you to worship. And I want you to just receive from the Lord. And I'm like, okay. And I go home, and I even put my headphones in, and I don't, but I don't play any music just because I want to feel like I'm alone in my head.
Yeah.
And nothing, crickets.
Yeah.
Absolute crickets, nothing. And then about 20 minutes go by, and I've shared this testimony many times. It's probably redundant, but it's funny. I think it's hilarious to this day that of all songs, what do I sing? I'm supposed to learn how to receive, and I'm singing, what can I do for you? What can I bring to you? And I didn't know any better. And so the next day I go to my revival group pastor, and I said, this receiving thing sucks. I don't get it. I don't understand. And she goes, well, it's because you believe that you need to pray and ask forgiveness for all of your sins, worship and get in the presence, and then you can receive. I'm like, yes. And I go, that's all I've ever known. Enter his gates with thanksgiving in your heart and keep your slate clean. Yeah. And she goes, nope, that's actually professional intimacy. And I'm like, oh, are you calling me a prostitute? And she goes, yeah, your mind cannot comprehend God pouring love out on you without you doing something for it first. Yeah. And I was like, she goes, let me ask you this. And I knew that I was close to it clicking. I could feel it was close to clicking, but not quite. But then she got me with my kids. Now, at the time, my boys are 26 and 28 now. But at the time, they were like 18, 19, 20. Yeah. struggling with their own addictions and couch hopping and dealing with their own pain that me and their dad had caused.
Yeah.
And so they were making bad choices, but my heart was just praying for them and loving them and whatnot. And she goes, Jenna, if your boys walked in the room right now, what would you do? I go, oh my gosh, I'd freak out. I'd be so excited. She goes, so would you run and love them? I'm like, yeah. She goes, you mean you wouldn't make them stop in front of you and tell you every single thing that they've done wrong since the last time that you've talked? And then say, I worship you, Mom. You're the best mom ever. You're the most gorgeous mom ever. Mom, I love you. And once they've told you all their sins and then worshiped you enough, then you hug them. And I was like,
Wow.
oh my word, that is so how I saw God. That
Wow.
it was all my responsibility
Yep.
to make sure there was no sin in my life,
Yeah.
that I worshiped him enough to earn him loving me. The idea that God just wanted to love me because I was his daughter was so foreign to me.
Yeah.
And so I went after it. And then this is what Heartscaping got built on. So I wish I could say it was an instant fix that night, but it wasn't. It took a couple nights. But I was like, I am going to learn how to connect to God without working for it.
Yeah.
And so I think it was like on the third night, and I said, how do I connect to God? I'm going to ask a question.
Yeah.
And I said, Jesus, what's your truth about me?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden this flood, I love that you asked, I love you, and you're beautiful, and you're this, and you're that, and da, 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 da. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
The next night, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Next night, same thing. On the third night, I was like, okay, that's not God. I'm just thinking really good thoughts about myself and saying that it's God.
Right.
And then what he said to me next was so clever. I could not think of it. He goes, Jenna, there isn't one amazing thought that you could have about yourself that I don't have a billion more. So think away. I'm never going to come to you and say, not that one. Now you're getting a little bit too big for your britches.
Yeah.
I'm never going to come to you and say, because you're thinking good thoughts about yourself, now you're self-righteous and self-absorbed.
Yeah.
I've watched you for 40 years live in hell, believing all the lies about yourself. You think I'm not in awe watching you sit and think of wonderful things about yourself?
Wow.
And that changed everything.
Wow.
That my good thoughts about myself that God was having were limitless.
Yeah.
And so that changed everything. And so when I learned to live in his truth instead of my lies, it changed everything. And that's what he's built my whole ministry on.
That's awesome. Yeah. For me, Jenna, I can relate to that because I would always do that, like enter in thanksgiving and praise, and then do my worship, do this and this. And then I would leave like that 5 minutes at the end of prayer. Okay, God, what do you want to say? And it's like, that's not relationship. Like we've all been with the friend, I say this in love, that they talk maybe the whole time about themselves. And then at the end, oh, how are you doing?
How are you doing? Yep, totally.
Real genuine.
I've been that person too. I've done it.
And sometimes in friendship, you just are. You need to do that,
Yeah.
But that's what I did with God for so long. And then my healing and breakthrough started coming from asking God actually Jesus, doing just work with Jesus, saying, okay, what do you want to show me? What do you want to show me? What lie do you want to show me? What do you want to show me? And that's when I would go on these adventures with Jesus and get this crazy breakthrough. And oftentimes, even now, I love my worship. I love entering into my time with God, thanking him and being grateful and just meditating on his goodness. But a lot of times when I cut out that time, I'm like, okay, God, I will have a journal sometimes, but I'm like, what do you want to say?
Yeah.
What do you want to tell me about me today? And just love on me. And that's where the shame gets broke, because we realize when you get to that place, you realize like he wants to tell me good things.
Yeah.
And I deserve good things. I deserve to hear the good things about me. That's when you know shame's broken. And that you know your identity as a daughter or a son of God, like you're deserving. Like you talked about your testimony and how with your testimony, like you weren't, I believe it was your pastor that said, you're not important because of what you've been through.
Yeah.
It all was based on that you're loved, that you're a daughter.
Yeah. You were always meant to be be a seer prophet that was going to bring freedom, but I wanted you to know that I love you as my daughter first.
Yeah.
And also settling into that love of the Lord, because I'll tell you right now, I know that if I never did another deliverance, if I never prayed for another person, if I never did another live, if I never did another movie, if I never did another podcast, that I would still be so full of life, because my life comes from him, from the source, and it's not based on what I do. So it switches. Instead of doing all of those things for him, I'm doing them with him.
Yes, that's absolutely amazing. Well, Jenna, we are close to the end of our time. I know we could go on. There's so much more. Do you have time to just maybe for Q&A, take one question?
Sure. I'm gonna grab my water real quick. Hold on.
Okay, awesome. So right now, if anyone's on and you have a question just for Jenna in any of the areas that we've talked about, go ahead and put it in, whether it's about the school or her coaching or just a question. Like I've seen people in the comments saying, you know what, that's been me. Or, I know, Jess, you were sharing that, like, that's been me. You're like, holy crap, that's been me. And so and other people in here, I don't want to just point you out, but if you're saying, that's been me, or something's resonating, and how do I shift out of this? So if you have any questions, go ahead and pop them in right now. Actually Jess said up here, she said, how do you just receive?
Oh, let's see. I lost you just a second. Are you still there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah. I lost I was trying to go to the comments and I got lost here. Sorry, I'm back. Okay. There we go.
Oh, you're okay.
Sorry. Can you repeat it? How do you just, okay. That's exactly it, is you go after it. And that's what she challenged me to do. And so I challenge you in the evening. For me, I don't know if you have to do this, but for me, I put earphones in and just don't play anything, because I wanted to feel alone in my head.
Yeah.
And to not pray, not worship. We are so good at pouring out. I love worship. I'm a worshiper, and we will pour out and we will minister to others, but we're really bad at sitting still and letting him love us, right? Have you ever tried to love someone that can't receive love? All the time.
Yep.
And so positioning yourself in receive mode, knowing that it's okay to be in receive mode, and just saying, Jesus, what's your truth about me? And then let him tell you. And then what I did as I was going after this is every night when I would ask him, I would write down what he said. And then I was learning about declarations. And every morning I would say it over myself as if I believed it. And then eventually my soul picked it up and it came into alignment with what my spirit already knew was right. Yeah. And so that's the best way to do that, is actually go after it. Position your heart in receive mode.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's when I give people homework and like activations and coaching, those are some of the things that I have them do right away. I'm not like, read your Bible every day, do this. I'm like, start to ask these questions.
Yeah.
Because when we begin to experience the love of God, there's nothing like it. It's absolutely transforming.
It becomes an addiction.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Like, I go through seasons sometimes where I don't even want to go anywhere, talk to anybody. I just want to be at home with him.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I was going to get into that, and I won't for the sake of your time, but God has me in a place where I was really just building, and I can go and I can do a lot. I have that big, high capacity for that, but I'm in more of a place of rest actually. And I'm just sitting at Jesus's feet. And I love it. I'm like, I don't know that I want to go back into all that. It can be so addicting, but I know that there's a time and a season for things, but it's just so beautiful to rest in his presence and be loved. And a lot of Christians go through life forever. I went through, I got saved at 14, and then I never experienced the love of God until in my 30s. That's how long it was before I actually came out of religion and works into this love. So I saw somebody else say this. I'm interested in learning more about the group or school. So Jojo, I'm going to, after this, put all the links in, and you'll be able to go right to that registration and sign up, and also to Jenna's website as well. So, so we're going to get off now. I just want to say thank you to everyone that's been on. And also, Jenna, obviously, thank you to you. I'm super
such a joy.
It's been great. It went by so fast, but it was powerful. And I just really appreciate you. And I'm excited for all the things that God's doing through you.
Yeah, excited. Bless you guys.
Thank you. God bless you, everyone. And go ahead and look for the comments where I'll be dropping in all the links. So have an amazing night. Love all of you. And I'll see you soon.